Some stories don't begin with a scream, they begin with a whisper. Harrison Ford hadn't planned on changing anyone's life that night. He just wanted dinner and quiet. But when a barefoot girl walked up to his table and asked, "Can I eat with you?" something shifted. In that moment, in a quiet restaurant far from Hollywood, an old pilot with tired eyes met a child who had forgotten what safety felt like. And everything that came next wasn't in any script. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and if stories like this move you, don't forget to subscribe. The question came quietly, but it cracked the room in half. "Can I eat with you?" Harrison Ford looked up from his plate. He hadn't touched the steak. The silverware lay perfectly placed, the wine untouched. He liked this place, the quiet, the dark wood walls, the worn leather booths, the kind of restaurant no one expected to find a Hollywood legend in. That was the point. But now, standing across from him, was a girl no older than 8. Black, barefoot, her dress was little more than cloth, torn at the hem, one shoulder slipping off a bony frame. Her hair was wild, her hands folded in front of her like she was holding something invisible, maybe courage. Around them, forks paused midair. Conversation drained out of the air like someone had pulled a plug. A woman in pearls near the window hissed, "She just walked in off the street. Where's the manager?" A man in a navy blazer rolled his eyes, reaching for his phone. "This is why we don't dine in Santa Monica anymore." The girl said nothing else, just stood there staring at the food on Harrison's plate. Her eyes were dry but distant, like they'd already seen too much and learned not to cry about it. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her. Then he pushed his chair back, slow and steady, and stood. A waiter rushed over. "Sir, we can handle this." "She's with me," Harrison said. It wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. The words stopped the room colder than the AC ever could. The girl blinked, unsure. Harrison nodded toward the booth. "Go on, sit." A second later, she slid onto the leather seat, her knees barely clearing the edge. She reached for the napkin but hesitated. The waiter hovered. "Mr. Ford, this really isn't." "I'll order for 2, Harrison said, sitting down again. He didn't look at the waiter. He didn't have to. A low murmur spread across the room. Phones came out. Someone near the bar whispered, "Is that Harrison Ford?" Another said, "He's still alive." Someone chuckled nervously. But near the kitchen, a young man in a hoodie with thick glasses raised his phone, snapped a photo, then started typing furiously. Within seconds, it was up. Legendary actor dines with homeless girl. PR stunt or kindness? The image, a weathered man in a collared shirt and boots sitting across from a barefoot child. The caption didn't need 1,000 words. The photo had done the talking. Back at the table, Harrison gently pushed a bread basket toward the girl. She looked at it like it might vanish. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, voice barely above a breath. "Maya." "Well, Maya," he said, "you're my guest tonight." The waiter returned, flustered. "Should I take your order now?" Harrison looked at the menu he'd seen 100 times and said, "Bring her something warm, and enough of it." Maya still hadn't touched the bread. She held her hands tight in her lap. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she whispered. "You didn't," Harrison said. "They're just not used to seeing someone honest." Across the room, people stared like they were watching a scene they hadn't agreed to be part of. A man scoffed. A woman gathered her purse and muttered, "Hollywood's really lost it." Harrison didn't care. Maya looked at the ceiling, then at the bread again. "I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to be here." "You're supposed to be anywhere you're hungry," he said, "especially here." For a moment, the silence between them felt like something sacred. Then, from the bar, a voice said too loudly, "Bet this ends up on TMZ before dessert." Harrison didn't flinch. He just sat there, watching the girl finally reach for a piece of bread, slowly breaking it in half, like she didn't want to damage it. And in that quiet act, delicate, careful, something broke inside him. He'd flown rescue missions, built characters out of silence and pain, but he'd never seen hunger handled so gently, not until now. The hush didn't last. Whispers picked up like wind before a storm. Silverware clinked again, sharper this time. One woman stared with open disgust. A man at the next table spoke just loud enough. This place used to have standards. Someone near the entrance made a call. "Yeah, there's a child, looks homeless." Yeah, right in the middle of the Mercer room. 3 tables away, a hostess stood frozen, glancing at the kitchen like she wanted to disappear into it. Harrison didn't move. He sat still, back straight, watching Maya hold the bread like it might fall apart in her hands. She was chewing slowly, too slowly, like she was afraid of finishing it too fast. The front doors burst open. 2 officers stepped in, not running, but walking with that rigid confidence that said someone wanted a problem solved. The lead officer scanned the room, saw Harrison first, then the child. His hand rested near his belt. The waiter rushed over to them in a panic. "I didn't call them," he whispered. "It was someone else." The officer spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "We got a report, minor trespassing, some complaints of disturbance." Harrison looked up calm. "She's with me," he said. The second officer furrowed his brow. "Is she your daughter?" There was a pause long enough to make the air heavy. "Not yet," Harrison said, voice low but clear. "But give us a minute." That stopped them just for a moment. The waiter's mouth opened, closed. In the far corner, someone's phone camera shifted slightly to get a better angle. The lead officer stepped forward. "Sir, we understand, but we need to verify. If there's no legal relationship." Harrison reached inside his jacket. Slowly, no sudden movements. The first officer tensed, but Harrison simply pulled out his wallet and unfolded a worn leather ID case. "Harrison Ford," he said. They looked down at the ID, then at him. Recognition dawned, not from the name but the face. It was one of those names everyone knew, but the presence hit harder. He wasn't a celebrity in that moment. He was gravity. "You'll find," Harrison continued, "I've contributed to your precinct, quietly, over the years, and I'm asking for a little quiet now." The officers hesitated. The younger one looked toward the girl. Maya had stopped eating. Her fingers clutched the napkin like a rope in a storm. "We'll wait outside," the lead said finally. They stepped back, retreating toward the doors. One glanced back, confusion etched into his face. As they exited, a voice from the bar whispered, "So that's how power works." Back at the table, Maya's eyes were wide. "Are they gonna come back?" she asked. "Not tonight," Harrison said. He poured her a glass of water. "Drink slow. Your body's not used to food yet." She obeyed, every movement quiet, rehearsed, like someone used to disappearing. "Do you live around here?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Under the bridge by the canal." He nodded once, didn't react with shock, just let the words settle. Maya looked at her plate. "It's mostly dry now, not like before." "Before?" he asked. "There was a flood, big one," she said, voice thinner than the air. "Mama couldn't swim, she tried. She screamed. Daddy tried to hold me up above the water." Her eyes didn't blink. "Then he was gone. They both were. I crawled up alone. I was wet and cold. Then it just got quiet." Harrison didn't speak. His hands rested on the table, steady. His eyes, though, were no longer watching Maya. They were somewhere else. Somewhere years back, in a different kind of wreckage. A crash site, a cabin, a stretcher. The sound of people screaming for help when it was already too late. The pain was the same. After a long silence, he leaned forward. "You eat as much as you want," he said. Maya looked at him again, unsure. "You really mean it? I wouldn't be here if I didn't." She picked up the spoon, started on the soup, still slow but a little more certain. Outside, the officers stood by the door. One lit a cigarette. The other watched through the window, shaking his head. Inside, the room was still tense, but no one said another word. And Harrison Ford, who had once saved worlds on screen, sat across from a child who didn't need a hero, just dinner. The ocean was quiet at that hour. No tourists, no joggers, just the slow rhythm of waves pulling against the sand like they were tired too. Harrison's truck sat parked at the edge of the overlook, headlights off, engine ticking softly in the cooling air. Inside, Maya sat curled in the passenger seat, her knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. She hadn't said much since they left the restaurant. Just stared out the window like she was afraid the moment would vanish if she moved too quickly. Harrison gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale. He didn't have a plan. He never expected one night out to turn into this. He had come for steak and silence. Now there was a child in his passenger seat, and the city behind them buzzed with questions he didn't want to answer. He looked over at her, She was watching the ocean now, eyes barely blinking. You cold? He asked. She shook her head. You hungry still? No, she whispered, just tired. He nodded and looked back at the empty road. Then he reached into the glove box, pulled out an old flip phone he kept for emergencies, and scrolled to a number he hadn't dialed in years. Rosa picked up on the third ring. Ford, her voice was alert. It's late. I know. You all right? I've got a question, he said. Hypothetical. Uh-huh, Rosa replied, already knowing it was. If I met a kid, maybe 8 years old, alone, no guardian, no home, what's stopping me from taking her in? Just for the night, keep her safe. Are the cops looking for her? No. Any custody paperwork? None. She paused. Then legally, nothing yet, but you better know what you're doing. Harrison exhaled, hand rubbing the back of his neck. I don't. There was a beat of silence. I remember that voice, Rosa said. You used it the first time we flew into the bayou together, back in '06. You were scared, but you stayed. She's just a kid, he said. No one even flinched when she said her parents drowned. Rosa's tone softened. Harrison, you're not responsible for saving every broken thing you see. He stared out at the black stretch of water. No, he said quietly, but I was the only one who stood up tonight. Rosa let that settle. Then, gently, just remember, raising a child isn't a rescue, it's not a stunt, and it's sure as hell not a script. He glanced over at Maya. She had dozed off slightly, her head tilted toward the window, breath slow, fingers still clutching the cloth napkin she had taken from the table like it was a lifeline. I know what it's not, he said. Rosa waited. This time, Harrison said, I'm not acting. A long silence passed between them, not awkward, just heavy. Rosa sighed. You got a place safe enough for her? Yeah. Then take her there, call me in the morning. I'll figure out what comes next. He hung up. The road back to Wyoming would take hours, but tonight he didn't need answers. He just needed to drive. As he started the truck, Maya stirred. Where are we going? She asked, voice thick with sleep. Somewhere quiet, he said. Somewhere safe. Is it far? Not too far. She nodded and leaned against the window again. Harrison glanced at her once more before pulling onto the highway. He didn't sign up for this, but he was already in it. And somewhere deep in his chest, where other things used to echo, something had just begun to settle. The cabin sat quiet under the Wyoming sky, wrapped in darkness and pine. No cameras, no lights, no traffic hum, just the creak of old wood and the hush of wind slipping through the trees. Harrison unlocked the front door, stepped aside, and let Maya in first. She hesitated, blinking into the space like it might vanish. The cabin wasn't big, 2 rooms, stone fireplace, a worn couch that had seen more books than people. It smelled like cedar and thyme. You can sleep there, he said, nodding to the couch. Bathrooms down the hall, water's warm most of the time. Maya didn't say much. She stood for a long moment, staring at the folded blanket on the armrest, then slowly lowered herself onto the cushions. Her small backpack stayed clutched to her chest like a shield. Harrison brought her a glass of water. She took it with both hands, careful not to spill. You need anything, he said, just knock. She nodded. He turned off the overhead light, leaving the lamp in the corner on low. Soft amber washed over her face. She looked even smaller now, the kind of small that came from years of shrinking, not just size but voice. He didn't go to bed right away. He made coffee, though he wouldn't drink it. Sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around the mug, eyes on the flame in the fireplace. The quiet had always comforted him. Tonight it felt sharp, like waiting for something that might not come. An hour passed. Then a sound split the silence. Maya's voice, not words, just a cry, low and guttural, the kind that lives deep in the chest. Harrison stood immediately. Crossed the floor in 4 steps. She was thrashing in the blanket, eyes closed, breath coming too fast. No, stop, mama. He crouched beside her, unsure. He didn't say her name, didn't touch her right away, just watched, waited. Then slowly, gently, he placed his hand on her shoulder. Her body flinched at first, then settled, not fully, but enough. She blinked awake, sweat on her forehead, eyes wide and lost. I'm sorry, she whispered. You don't need to be, he said. She sat up, breath shaky, looking around the room like she didn't remember how she got there. "You're safe," Harrison said. "You're here, that's all that matters." Her voice cracked. "I thought it was a dream. This whole place, it's not." She was quiet. Then very softly she asked, "Am I just tonight's story?" He didn't answer right away, just met her eyes. "You're the reason I stayed," he said. Her face shifted. Not a smile, not yet. But something loosened in her shoulders. He pulled the blanket up around her again, then sat beside the couch on the floor. He didn't go back to bed, didn't move, even when her breathing evened out again. He just sat there, back leaning against the wall, watching the last embers in the fireplace fade into a soft orange glow. Outside, the wind picked up. Inside, the past settled into the room, not as a ghost, but as a witness. And for the first time in years, the cabin didn't feel empty. It felt lived in, slightly broken, but human. The storm didn't wait long. 2 days after they returned to Wyoming, it arrived. Not in rain or thunder, but in headlines. One photo, grainy, cropped. Harrison Ford holding Maya in his arms, stepping out of a government building in Cheyenne. The article was worse. Hollywood hero or political pawn, Ford's surprise visit fuels rumors of a run for office. Beneath that, a quote from an anonymous source, "Adopting a child, that's the kind of story that wins votes." He didn't read the rest. He sat at the breakfast table, mug in hand, watching Maya spoon cereal without speaking. The morning light fell softly across her face. She hadn't seen the news, not yet. He didn't bring it up. That afternoon, Rosa showed up. She didn't knock, she never did. She let herself in, dropped her canvas bag by the door and held up her phone. "This is getting out of control," she said. He nodded. "They're using the kid, twisting everything." He stayed silent. "They have a timeline now," she continued. "Restaurant, police arrival, your disappearance from LA. Then the photo outside the State House. You're being painted as some kind of campaign strategy." Harrison leaned back in the chair. "They don't care if it's true." "No," Rosa said. "They care if it's clickable." She put her phone down. "You need to issue a statement." "No, Harrison. I'm not defending doing the right thing." Rosa studied him. "You're not the one I'm worried about." He looked toward the hallway. Maya's backpack was gone. She had asked to go to school that morning. Said she wanted to try it. Small town, local public school. Rosa had pulled a few strings. But now he wondered if it was too soon. The phone rang again. Rosa's this time. She answered. "Hello?" A pause. Then she looked at Harrison. "It's the school." 10 minutes later, they were standing outside the counselor's office. Maya sat alone inside, her arms wrapped around herself. Her head was down. The counselor opened the door gently. It was a comment. A group of older kids. One of them said that she was just a PR trick, that she wasn't really his. Rosa closed her eyes. Harrison didn't. He stepped into the room. Maya didn't look up. He sat beside her, quiet. Finally, she spoke. "They said I'm just your publicity girl." He exhaled through his nose. "And what do you think?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Am I?" He looked straight ahead. "No." She was quiet, "But everyone's talking." "They will," he said. "They don't know you, they don't know us." Maya's voice shrank. "I want to disappear." He turned toward her. "That's not happening, but I don't want to go back there." "You won't," he said, "not alone." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just sat still, like she was trying to vanish into the chair. Later that evening, back at the cabin, Rosa leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "This isn't going away," she said. "It's getting louder." "I know," Harrison said. "They'll spin everything." "Then we build something real," he said. "Something they can't spin." Rosa tilted her head. "You thinking foundation, statement, press tour?" "No," he said. "A life." That night Maya stayed in her room. The drawing she had started the day before sat unfinished on the kitchen table. It had been a house. Now it was just a roof with no walls. Harrison picked it up. Then he turned to the window, watching the sun fall behind the trees. He had faced criticism before, reviews, campaigns, even a crash that nearly cost him his life. But this wasn't about him. This time they weren't trying to tear down a name. They were trying to rewrite a child's truth. And he wasn't going to let them. Not now, not ever. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Not hurried, not hesitant, just steady. Harrison opened the door to find a man standing there, clothes worn, sunburn lining the creases of his face. He looked like someone who'd been outside too long and spoken too little. In his hands, a folder, thin, weathered. The man didn't introduce himself right away. He looked past Harrison into the house, eyes scanning for something, someone. "I'm looking for Maya," he said. His voice was rough, like it hadn't been used for days. Harrison didn't move. "Who are you?" The man cleared his throat. "Name's James Holloway. I saw a picture online, thought it might be her, took me a few days to be sure, but I think she's my daughter." The folder in his hand slipped open just enough to reveal a photo. A small girl in a pink dress, maybe 4 years old, sitting on a man's lap. Her hair was shorter, her smile wider, but the eyes, those eyes were Maya's. Harrison stepped outside, closing the door behind him. "You walked away," he said, flat. James swallowed. "I didn't mean to. After the flood, after her mama drowned, I wasn't right. I drank, I broke. I thought she'd be better off without me." "She wasn't," Harrison said. "She lived under a bridge, ate from dumpsters, watched people disappear." James winced like he'd been slapped. "I didn't know, I swear. I thought someone would find her." "I thought." "You didn't think," Harrison cut in. "You left." James looked down. "I know, and maybe I don't deserve to see her, but I had to try. I want her to know I didn't stop loving her." There was a long silence. Then Harrison said, "She's not ready, but I'll ask." He didn't invite James in, just told him to wait, then stepped back inside, closing the door with the weight of something unfinished. Maya was in the living room, coloring again. The chalkboard wall behind her was full of vines and suns and tiny stick figures holding hands. She looked up as Harrison entered. "There's someone outside," he said. "Says he's your dad." Her hand froze mid-drawing. "He wants to see you." "Only if you want." She stared at the floor. "I don't know. You don't have to decide now." She was quiet for a long time. Then softly, "Can you stay with me if I see him?" "I'm not going anywhere." She nodded once. A few minutes later, James stood in the backyard, feet dug into the dirt, shoulders hunched. Maya stepped out behind Harrison, her hand wrapped around his. James looked at her like she was a ghost. "Hey, little star," he said. She didn't answer, just watched him. "You look taller," he said, forcing a smile. "Guess you had to." There was a pause, the kind that stretches too long. "Why did you leave me?" she asked. James's face cracked. "Because I was broken, and I didn't know how to fix it. And I thought you'd be safer without me, but I was wrong." She looked at him for a moment, then looked at Harrison. Back at James. "I don't remember your voice," she said, "but I remember Mama's scarf. She smelled like cinnamon." James nodded, eyes wet. "You do too." They stood like that, separate, unsure, until finally Maya spoke again. "You can come back," she said, "but only a little. I don't want to go back. This is home." James nodded, chest rising and falling like he'd been holding his breath for a year. "I won't take anything from you," he said. "I just wanted to know you were okay." Harrison stepped forward then, his voice calm. "She is, and she will be." Later that night, after James had gone, Maya curled up on the couch beside Harrison. "Do you think he meant it?" she asked. "I think he's trying." She nodded, "But I don't have to go with him." "No." She leaned against his side, her voice smaller now. "Then I'm okay too." And Harrison realized, in that quiet moment, that the hardest thing about healing wasn't the pain. It was choosing not to go back. Spring arrived slow in Wyoming. It didn't burst through the door. It crept, one leaf at a time, one crack in the frost, one breath of air that no longer bit. Maya noticed it first. She pressed her face to the window one morning and said, quietly, "We should grow something." Harrison looked up from his coffee. "Like what?" She thought for a second. "Tomatoes, sunflowers, something that doesn't hide." They started that afternoon. The rooftop of the cabin wasn't much. A flat space meant for stargazing and radio antennas, but with a few crates, some potting soil, and a dozen seed packets from the local feed store, it began to change. Maya named every plant, whispered to them like they were friends. She built signs out of popsicle sticks and labeled the rows in shaky handwriting: hope beans, courage carrots, laughing lavender. Harrison didn't say much. He just carried the bags, turned the soil, and watched as the girl who once shrank from every question now sang to her strawberries while she watered them. 2 weeks later, she brought him a flyer, hand-drawn in colored pencil. "Garden Open Day," it read. "Come see what we grew." "You want to invite people?" he asked. She nodded. "I want them to see it, not just read about it." He paused. "There'll be questions. I'll answer the ones that matter." So they planned. Rosa helped call the neighbors. A local bakery donated cookies. Harrison made lemonade that was too tart, but Maya said it tasted like sunshine. Even the school agreed to let a few classmates visit. Maya wrote each invitation by hand. The morning of the event, she stood in the middle of the rooftop in a yellow dress, hair braided, clipboard in hand. The garden behind her bloomed like it understood the moment. People came slowly at first. A retired librarian from down the hill, a woman with 2 toddlers, then a few more, and then the cameras came. Harrison saw them from the steps, 2 news vans, microphones, long lenses. He waited for the usual twist in his chest, but it didn't come. He didn't walk away. Instead, he poured another pitcher of lemonade. Maya didn't flinch either. She walked the garden like a tour guide, explaining which flowers liked sun and which herbs smelled like bedtime tea. She showed them the tiny cucumbers, the tomato plants with names like Fred and Gloria. She answered every question, except the ones that didn't deserve answers. Then, without prompting, she climbed onto a small wooden box near the corner of the roof. People turned. She cleared her throat. "This garden wasn't here before," she said. "It was just a roof. And I wasn't here before either. I was just a girl nobody saw. But now this is mine. I grow here." The crowd was silent. The wind moved gently through the marigolds. A woman near the back wiped at her eyes. "A teacher," someone whispered. "Maya's old school." She leaned toward Rosa and said under her breath, "I don't believe headlines, but now I believe her." Maya stepped down. Harrison met her halfway, handed her a cup of lemonade. "You ready for the second round of questions?" he asked. She smiled. "Bring them." That evening, after the last guest left, after the chairs were folded and the lemonade ran out, Maya sat at the edge of the roof, feet swinging over the side. She looked out at the sky, now streaked with pink and gold. "You think the plants knew this would happen?" she asked. Harrison sat beside her. "No, but they kept growing anyway." She nodded. "Me too." The courthouse was small. No marble columns, no flags flapping in the wind, just a square brick building with a bench out front and a bell that never rang. Inside, the walls were beige. The chairs creaked. The clerk at the front desk barely looked up when they arrived. Maya wore her yellow dress, the one with tiny embroidered flowers at the collar. In her hands, she held a single piece of paper, a drawing. Crayon lines shaped into a house with a sun and a tree and 2 stick figures holding hands. At the bottom, in crooked letters, it said, "No more bridges." Harrison walked beside her, no tie, just a clean shirt and quiet eyes. Rosa waited inside, seated near the back, a manila folder balanced on her knees. James was already there. He stood when Maya entered, nodded once, but said nothing. She nodded back. That was enough. The judge was a woman in her 60s, silver hair pulled tight, glasses low on her nose. She looked over the file, then at Harrison, then at Maya. "Is this what you want?" she asked the girl. Maya nodded. "Why?" Maya held up the drawing. "Because this feels like home, and I want the name that matches it." There was a pause. The judge looked at Harrison. "Do you understand the responsibility this carries?" "Yes." "Why do you want to adopt her?" Harrison glanced at Maya, then back at the judge. "Because no one should have to ask permission to be loved." Silence. Not heavy, just full. The judge signed the form. "Maya Holloway Ford," she said aloud, "effective today." Maya beamed. James stepped forward after the hearing, holding out a small box. "It's her mother's necklace," he said. "She wore it the day Maya was born." Harrison took it gently, then passed it to Maya. She opened it with both hands, cradled it like it might break. "Thank you," she whispered. James looked at Harrison. "Take care of her." "I already do." That night back at the cabin, they didn't throw a party. No cake, no streamers, just the 2 of them on the couch, a blanket over their knees, the fireplace low and steady. Maya leaned into him, necklace still around her neck. Do you think we'll have to explain this to people forever? She asked. Maybe. Will they believe it? He looked down at her. They won't have to, you'll live it. She smiled, sleepy, soft. Outside, the garden rested. The tomatoes leaned into the dark. The sunflowers closed their eyes. And in the quiet warmth of that little house on the hill, Maya Holloway Ford, no longer a question, no longer a headline, fell asleep in the arms of a man who never signed up to be a father. He just showed up and stayed. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.